it's stress that creates toxins in us, in our body. We don't realize how that's building up and how to get rid of it. It's not just take a green juice or, even therapy. I mean, these are great things. Do have your green juice, go to therapy, do all of that stuff. But it's day to day, like working on whatever is built up through that day so that it doesn't drag into the next day. Having practices, having routine, discipline.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Onion Soup. And today we have joined us Miss Rubina. How are you doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
I am doing great. So, you started a company called Inner Design, and your company bridges the inner and outer creative journeys. So, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So for me, I worked in the creative industry for a long time. And I started to look around and see everyone is really stressed out, and we kind of get this go, go, go mentality. And right now, also, like everyone's a creator. There's a lot of pressures to it, you know. And I began to tap into different mindfulness methods, meditation, breath work, stuff that I kind of grew up with. And I started to find this correlation that, like, the more I went in this journey, like, to be able to kind of self-soothe in so many ways, the more I could tap into this realm of, like, more creative energy and be more productive and, all this good stuff you're hearing, like, with peak performance and things like that. And so then I thought this would be really great for me to market towards other creatives in the industry who are working, who came in all bright-eyed and energetic with great ideas, but somewhere kinda lost their, the excitement of it, lost their creative touch. And so that's kind of where it started for me, yeah.
Interesting. So, when you talk about people losing that spark, because that happens so often to us, right? We have these grand ideas of what we want to do. Why do you think we lose that spark? Because I was talking to someone the other day, and I was like, as an entrepreneur, about 15-20% of what we do with our entrepreneurial jobs is actually what we like to do. The rest of it is the back end that people don't see. So do you think that leads up to that burnout?
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I was just speaking with some artists and they were saying, I create my art now. I was working in graphic design or in agencies and I was creating work for other people. And now I just paint or do whatever it is. And it's for me, and it's so much more fulfilling. And I don't mind living a more modest life or, trying to cut back and be minimal so that I can have that freedom. So I think everyone's looking for that freedom, whether you're in a creative expression field or not. You really wanna have, like, autonomy, say, over yourself, sovereignty,
Mm,
and I think why we lose that, honestly, is stress builds up, and actually, it's stress that creates toxins in us, in our body. We don't realize how that's building up and how to get rid of it. It's not just take a green juice or, even therapy. I mean, these are great things. Do have your green juice, go to therapy, do all of that stuff, but it's day to day, like working on whatever is built up through that day so that it doesn't drag into the next day. Having practices, having routine, discipline. We all know that we need those things. And it's just the great building blocks to put into that are simple, you can do on your own. I know some people are like, oh, meditate. I'll do it through an app or whatever. You really just need yourself. You just need to
mm,
train yourself, right? There's different kinds, and there's nothing to knock any of these apps and stuff like that. Some people need to go to the gym and have a personal trainer, but we know we could just get on our floor and do push-ups. And just doing it is really what the point is, right? Getting to it rather than making extra bridges to cross over in order to get to that, right?
right.
So that's what makes me really want to teach it and passionate about it is that these are things, I always say when I teach breath work, it's like there's a secret key, and guess what? It's right under your nose. It's your breath. You can tap in. We're walking around doing it all the time. We're living in this world of oxygen, and we're not able to really fully have the full capacity of what it offers.
Mm. So
Yeah.
diving deeply into mindfulness and not just mindfulness practices, but really incorporating that into your life. How do you get someone who's never really practiced breath work to not just get started, but breathe properly throughout their day with everything that they do?
I think it's a little bit of a high expectation to feel like anyone does it properly all the time. Even
Right.
myself, there's times where I'm reading a stressful email, and all of a sudden I can feel like my body's tensed up, my face is probably furrowed, and I'm holding my breath. because I'm just,
Mhm,
but the more we practice it, so just learning it properly, and I do a lot of one-on-one, with different people so that they can understand what really clicks. It's different for everybody. I do teach workshops, but then a lot of times my life coaching goes into one-on-one. I start to hear where is it that person is, having a more difficult time and how can I help them to navigate that?
mm,
And then it's just practice. It's just all the time. So even for myself, now maybe I catch myself reading that stressful email like within a minute or two, whereas before it might be 20 minutes that I didn't realize, oh my God, that's been like, ruminating in my head and I'm holding it in my body. And so the more that you practice these somatic experiences,
mhm,
you really become a friend to your own body and your being. And you start to ask yourself these questions. Am I holding tension? Am I holding my
mm,
breath? Am I, doing what is it I need right now? Do I need a sip of water? And just kind of just connecting and slowing down that mind that's
mm,
just pulling us into kind of a vortex of the world that's like more, more, more this, that, and the more we have things where we lose our focus and our attention is going in so many directions, the more we need these practices,
mhm.
really.
I love that, and I think that's very well put, as I 100% agree with you. None of us actually I shouldn't say none, very few of us breathe, let's say, the proper way throughout
Yeah.
the entire day because we're human. We have these extenuating circumstances that occur in our lives that we do feel tense, and it's about being able to recognize that tension, being able to recognize that wall and say, "I'm there, and that's okay, but now I can breathe." How long do you think it takes for someone to get to that place?
Oh gosh. I don't know if I can say how long. Everybody's so different.
Mm,
Really, I think more and more. Here's what I really feel. I feel like as a big picture society, culture, the world, we've become so small and connected in some ways through all of our electronics and things like that. I mean, we can be in different places, but we're here together, right? So the more that we become connected, the easier actually our consciousness is raising because we
mm,
have access to so much, right? So there's two sides of that. There's like the information that's like overload, right? That happens. But I think that on a conscious side of it, humanity is raising in their evolution. Yes. Do we
mm,
see chaos in the world? Yeah. I think it's always going to be like a scale. The more, consciousness and more evolved we are, the maybe more hectic things are. And so that as it keeps climbing up that scale, I think that really, it's important. And I think that people will become more and more open-minded and more
mm,
free to it. And I'm noticing it, the talk, the discussions when I walk into like a cafe, I can hear it. It's becoming very common. And
mm.
because of that, I think that people catch on faster.
Yeah.
I've been doing this kind of practices for over a decade now and in the
Mm,
education system. And in the past year or two, it's really fast. And some of the students I have, they really pick up fast and they're able
mm,
to like really make it part of their life and build into it. So it's hard to say, but I do think that is a learning curve, but people are ready for it. People are more willing to do
mm.
more for themselves, right?
What's the average age of the students that you work with?
I work with all ages. I used to work
Uh,
with really, really little kids. I kind of miss it. Right now, I this past summer I worked with small kids like ages kinder through third grade,
mm,
and it was really fun. So those are my youngest, maybe 5-year-olds, I would say.
mhm.
And then the oldest, I mean, I work with senior citizens too. So
Yeah.
like the full gamut, the full range. My majority of the week is taken up at high schools. So high
Oh,
school,
that's
a
interesting.
little bit of middle school, yeah, a lot of high schoolers. And I actually teach in an art school that
Mm,
is over here in Southern California. There's 2 of them, California School of the Arts in Duarte and in
okay.
Orange County, OSHA. And I get a chance to work with a lot of kids who are using these tools to help with their, creative expression, the art
Mm.
expression, whatever it might be, performances and things like that. Before you go on stage, take some deep breaths, check in
So,
with yourself.
with you working with such a wide range of ages, teaching people about breath work and mindfulness and consciousness, do you notice any resistance with certain age groups, or are some age groups more receptive to this information than others?
I wouldn't say it goes by age groups. Yeah, maybe
Mm,
it's harder for us as we all get older. It's harder for us to bring skills, but I think that they're still looking for it. When I work
Mhm,
for middle-aged people out there in the career fields, or even, like I said, seniors, they're looking for it. They have maybe a little bit more of a challenge to pick up a new skill, but they're
mhm,
still willing. There's a lot of willingness, and there's that seeking for something.
mhm. Do you find it more challenging sometimes to get people who've been breathing so irregularly for an extended period of their life, to get them taking deep breaths or that yogic breath or that shamanic breath? Is it more challenging to teach that?
Yeah, I'll say the challenge is that the longer we've been practicing something that's not quote unquote the wrong way, but the
Yeah.
longer that we've been doing something a certain way, it's hard to kind of course correct. So I
Mhm,
do see sometimes a little bit of a pushback with people who, aren't able, they feel it's not a pushback towards me. It's kind of almost like an internal conflict that they're having of,
mhm.
oh my God, I can't do this. I don't do this right, so maybe it's not for me, and I just have to do a little more hand holding. It's okay, it's
Yeah,
for everyone. You can get there too. You can learn new things, and yeah, just a little bit more of that effort.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're doing your work and your goal is to really connect the inner and outer journeys for people,
Yeah.
what exactly does that look like? Because when we're looking at a younger population, I feel like we're working more, well, really, it's easier to get that synergy going, because they're so moldable and it's easier to, I mean, talking to kids is great, you know? So, like, they're so moldable and it's so much fun. But
Yeah.
when you try to work with somebody who might have some type of trauma in their background, and it might take a little bit longer to find inner peace for that person, how do you connect? How do you heal that trauma and then connect that inner journey to their outside perspectives and everything?
Yeah, it's good that you brought up trauma. I actually did a lot of studying in trauma-informed care,
Mhm,
and I think of it this way, the person who shows up, each person, they have the wisdom inside of them somewhere that can tap into what they need in that moment. It takes a keen ear,
mhm,
and I use a lot of observation. They have to find the answer for themselves. It will come through, and sometimes gentle prompting of questions, asking them, where are you feeling things? What do you feel like doing right now? It comes in, it takes a while for them to trust that, because trauma is really a break in trust. It's a break in trust from you and the other, whatever the situation is. And then eventually it's the doubt, the self-doubt that really becomes something that's solidified. And as you look at a person who's on this journey to move through their trauma, it takes time and gentleness and effort. And it's not something that can happen just in one experience.
yeah,
It is like definitely over time.
mhm,
And I think that them being able to see that, you know what, I trust them. I'm going to help them. I'm going to guide them to trust themselves. And over time, eventually it happens. It does. And you're right. And even with small kids, it does. Some of them are a little more skeptical. They face stuff
mhm,
that's made them afraid, however big. I mean, people are like, "Oh, things are so traumatizing." Yes,
mhm,
however big or small, it's not to exclude anything, or, it's every experience has made us who we are,
yeah,
and being able to sit with it is sometimes really uncomfortable, really
mhm,
difficult. So sometimes things like mindfulness, meditation, getting still can be really difficult. So we use different ways. I kind of get different entry points of what might work. Let's move around. Let's get some somatic stuff if that's comfortable
mhm,
for me. Yeah, just, it
mhm,
takes a lot of different modalities.
yeah.
It
So
takes a really open mind from yourself person that, is working with this, with you.
So when you're working with somebody to help them integrate some of that trauma and helping them to find trust, not just in others, but oftentimes we lose trust with ourselves,
Yeah.
and that can be preventing us from growth and having blockages. As an artist, what seems to be the best form or best modality to help people with that integration process?
I don't know if there's one, but I definitely would say I have my top 3. The first one that I'll say that is really helpful is movement.
Mhm,
Movement is, I mean, so, like, underrated for what it can do, is, like, simple movement, just swaying or shaking, things like that. Just shake off your hands, shrug your shoulders, close your eyes, shake your head, like, feeling like actually animals do this. We
mhm,
watch them, like dogs and Even up to elephants, they get in dust and then they just shake it all off. You see them like shudder their whole body. We need to do this a lot of times. We need to just shake off things. Like literally, it's a terminology we use, just shake it off, right? Actually, you need to do it. And so sometimes simple things like that, if a person's comfortable and can
Mhm,
trust in movement. Other times, if movement is too intense or raw or whatever triggering for them, then I would say journaling because it's a
mhm,
quiet activity, so if they prefer that, then I would go into that. Just start free form writing, just write out whatever it is, and some people judge their writing by words, and so that's where I use that 3rd one of, like, just sketching, just, like,
mhm,
it can be doodles, it can be scribble, scrabble, whatever, just start flowing and, some of that hand-eye coordination gets going and, we start getting some stuff. It's also somatic in some
mhm,
ways, but it's a little more cognitive or people may be comfortable because it's not big movements where they may be self-conscious of themselves, even if it's not someone else, even if it's not self-conscious towards me, they're self-conscious within themselves. So those are I would say those are my, like, 3 top to kind of help them have some little bit of a breakthrough and then get into the breath and the meditation aspect of it. And then, yeah, in my workshop, the creative reset, I always have one of those 3 for each of sometimes it's a 3-day workshop, sometimes I just have one, but I'll try to introduce those. And then I give them takeaways that they can do that at home with the mindfulness skills. Okay, well, you're going to bust out your journal today, and then you're going to follow these mindful prompts or something.
So talking about having these breakthroughs, what what's the importance of connecting our left side logical mind to our right side creative mind in order to have a true creative breakthrough? Whether that breakthrough be as an artist or breaking through some type of trauma.
Yeah, it's a basic human need to have some growth, right? Sometimes when we talk about breakthroughs from past traumas, it's just that that growth has been stunted. And then we know we need to activate both hemispheres of our brain. A lot of the yoga that I teach is purposeful in activating left brain and right brain. And so I think that even when we get sick, for example, I'll put it this way, it's fighting a little something. Our body gets really stiff and still, and we may lay in the bed and we may stay on one side. And we start getting stagnant. We start slowing down, which we need for recovery, to be honest. But to really have, advancement in life, we need to grow. We need to step through things. Doesn't matter our age or our stage, everyone wants something. And so I call it breakthroughs, but also they're just small little things, everything is part of growth. As you're living and breathing, every inhalation is life coming in. Every exhalation is almost like a mini death. It's, the end of something. And so we're in that flow constantly. And if we actually grow that envision it, but grow it by every single thing that we do, every action that we take, every step that we make, every little activity that we take part in,
Mm,
it is part of that. It is part of that, and they are breakthroughs. We may not sense that way, and once you do something repetitively, you feel like, "That's not a breakthrough. It's my everyday thing," but it's towards growth. Yeah, it's
yeah.
towards growth.
I also think that's the importance behind journaling as well, because you can kind of document your own growth and your own
Yeah, yeah.
journey. Because we'll think that, oh, it's almost like you wake up one day and you're 10 times better, and you kind of forget that you went through this whole process of transformation. A butterfly coming out of the chrysalis, if you will forget that they were a caterpillar before. And we need that documentation to say that, no, I did change, I did grow, and it wasn't an overnight process. But when we look at meditation, and you're talking about you introduce these practices a lot through the type of yoga that you do. Is the yoga that you do focused on somatic movements, or do you focus more so on the breathing techniques? Some people do the breathe through one nostril, then the other.
Yeah. So, yes, and yes to all of them in different levels. So, yes, it is focused. I've been trained in, like, authentic yoga, hatha yoga, authentic ways, and in the breath work also. It is the controlled side of it, but also when I teach it, there's the letting go side of it, right? So you have to be able to know the discipline, this is what we're doing, but we're also allowing what comes through. So not totally with a strict and really regimented definition of it, because each person is having a different experience, right? So you're asking me, am I teaching in um, a more somatic experience? Absolutely. It's visceral. It's all one happening together. And is it happening by the way that I'm guiding it? I would say no. I would say I'm guiding that person. They're having the practice. I'm not practicing it for them or through them, or I'm not teaching them a practice. The practice is what we do, right? When we say, oh, I practice this or I practice that, it's not through the person who's guiding us, right? So for me, a lot of times as a guide, I'm just like, here's what, I offer for you. See what it is that what's wanting to come through, or what your body wants to do, or just notice how your breath is, and then kind of go with that more consciously as your breath is happening, a heavier breath or louder or longer or more drawn out. Then let's go with that. And then I take that to help guide them, because they're already going through a practice that's needed for themselves. So that's why I say a lot of times it's really, each person really knows it. And it takes someone to help them, be led in the dark of, oh, somebody sees me. We're all looking for recognition. We want to be understood, right? And so that's what it is. It's being in a place where I'm there to help them to understand themselves. I'm not going to take credit for understanding them, or, whatever it is. They're understanding themselves. And those are the touch points where it's okay, let's guide down this a little bit. And they're not going alone,
Mhm.
hopefully helping them shine the flashlight in different directions that they may not be able to see on their
Yeah.
own in that moment. So yeah, profound, profound things happen for them, and I always get really excited to
Yeah.
see and experience it too, right?
Wow, so then what role does intuition play in you helping out the clients? Because you mentioned earlier that you watch them and you're almost like studying them
Yeah.
while they're going through the therapy. So what role does your intuition play in all of that?
Yeah, I would call it presence and
Mm,
awareness. Very simple, right? When we think of intuition, we think, "Oh my god, this magnificent thing will drop down and it's very enlightening." But I'm really gonna just kinda dumb it down and just say we all have this, where when mindfulness, presence, awareness, and we all lose it too. There's moments where I can go about things that are not as mindful as I wish. I just
mm,
went into autopilot, or my mind took over and I was in a different mode. And so just practicing that more and more. I spend a lot of time on the mat myself, a couple hours a day, meditating, moving, breathing, all of that. Like I would say, minimum, I would say I spend 2 hours a day.
mm.
I would like it to be four. But sometimes, there's other obligations and responsibilities that are
Tell me
knocking at
about
the door.
it. Yeah, I know we wish we could just sit in meditation for hours upon hours, and
Uh-huh.
that's just
Yeah.
not realistic, but I kinda wanna dive into that because I think that's important.
Yeah.
We talk about sometimes not being as present as we want to, even though we ourselves are practicing in that space. Can you talk a little bit on the importance of keeping up with your spiritual practices as you yourself are an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think it's important to have a discipline where you are regimented and you're able to and you feel good about it. For me, it's calling me. Roll out of the bed, get on the floor, your mat's
Mm,
waiting. It happens, in the morning. I'm just like, oh, I can stay in bed now. It's calling me. But really taking that practice beyond the mat,
mm,
beyond those 2 hours that I spend. I wake up early. I'm one of those like 5 a.m. club people. I like to sleep, if possible, by 9 p.m. So I say my full-time job is I sleep 9 to 5. That makes me a happy person and fully, rested, rejuvenated. But other than that, so if I get up at 5, it's a quiet world out there. No one's bugging. Of course, there's distractions if I want them to be. I can pick up my
mhm,
phone and go down, the rabbit hole. But just getting to the mat, get myself there, spend those couple of hours before everyone else in the world starts to wake up and
mhm,
try to, connect, which is great. I want that also. But a big practice has been lately, like, I'm just thinking of the concept more and more of like meditation in movement, in motion. Like 2 hours, it's great. But some people get up from their 2 hours on the mat or in meditation, and then they go into a cycle of autopilot where their
mhm,
mind is running the game. and not their inner, not their true self, not really what needs to run the show, you know? And so that is a big part of it, is just having a practice to be able to say, I do this. And then while I'm cutting vegetables, when I'm putting dishes away, when it's not so glamorous, how mindful can I be? Am I still meditative in my mode? Of course, it gets lost, and sometimes then I have to reel myself in, you know? So it's all day long, it's ebb and flow like the waves, not tide the tide doesn't stay consistent. We can't expect it for our mind, so we have to have some grace given to ourselves. I'm like, "Okay, fine, I wasn't the best around lunchtime, maybe I was hungry," or, you know, and then move through, just move through. Every moment is showing up free, fresh, and renewed, and an opportunity, and if we slip up and we keep looking behind in the past incidences, we're never gonna create this for ourselves, you know? It's just saying, "Okay, again, let me just renew myself, my mentality." Yeah.
Yeah, beautifully said, you know, we have to ebb and flow with life, and we're all going through this process and this journey, and we all still have normal, quote unquote normal, lives. But Rabina, we only have a few minutes left. Is there anything you would like to leave with the audience before we go?
Yeah, I mean, I would really love to have a lot of more people to be able to have access to the program that I have, the Creative Reset. It's mindful, you know, breath work, meditation, different experiences, and then partnered with a creative expression. I'm offering a little promo, Zen Pass, I think it's .com, just listed my program. And so it's right now 50% off. If anyone wants to join, you can find me on Zen Pass. But mostly, I think my big desire and why I teach this to the youth is bringing this more and more to everyday practices. Everyone can have access to a more creatively fulfilled life, you know, whatever that is. If it's just that you love cooking, you know, for your family, that's a creative expression. It's beautiful. So not thinking that creativity is something that's out there. You have to be a professional in an expression or anything like that. It's all of us. We all do something creatively, you know. Maybe we organize our closets in my color, whatever it is, it brings us joy, right? So just having that and being able to know that you know you have access to it and just slowing down, you know, come slow down with me. So
Oh, I love that. Yes, we all definitely need to slow down just a little bit more. Well, thank you, Rabita, for coming on, and I wanna thank you all for tuning again to this episode of Onion Soup. Hope you all have a wonderful and beautiful rest of your day. Thank you.
great. Thank you for having me.